Hey everyone, and first of all, thank you for the organizers again giving this space for rather non-traditional opening. My name is Jukka-Pekka Heikkilä. I'm being an entrepreneurship scholar in the Aalto University School of Business, 2013 to 2020, and so you see where the word is coming from. And now, when we are going to talk about a bit of business. I feel that giving a bit of background, where does this come from, is warranted. And also I'm going to do same than Juuso did. Thanks for very inspirational opening. And I'm bringing now two fields together, entrepreneurship and psychedelics field. And so why this topic is that last winter I was a co-lead of the psychedelics seminar in Iceland, which was more of it was less scientific, and we had a Nordic Academic Association Day where we brought together associations, and also it was very startup-ish conference. We suddenly hosted a startup evening where US-based startups were pitching for investments. So that it happens in Iceland. For me, it was a signal like, okay, something is coming, but we don't have exactly idea what is coming, because it's not going to be what's happening in Silicon Valley, that's for sure. But so that was the signal. Second signal was that I've been observing first entrepreneurial ecosystems, how entrepreneurs have been changing as a result, especially of the week-long transformative festivals, be it Burning Man, be it Boom, be it Fusion Festival, but week-long, where usually the experience includes consumption of psychedelics. So simply like very anecdotal, very ethnographic. My methods are always qualitative. The work in North Korea, entrepreneurship work there was fully ethnographic. So that's kind of like I cannot avoid keeping that lens on. And so also collecting stories as a hobby, where there was the rather adventurous talk last conference was about the stories that we have collected from hundreds of participants, and now we programmed an AI of it, but that's another story. Is that also there, it's very visible how it changes, and when you brought that it's the sustainability, and that's something like also in entrepreneurship, it's visible, but it's very. There is no research, and there are certain explanations that I will come later why there is very little of entrepreneurship research, at least my perception of it within this field. Then lastly and thirdly, which is very exciting, is this happened this week, is that in Yhteiskuntapolitiikka there is now Revise and Resubmit, an article that is about this theme, but it builds towards a phenomenon that is then translated to Finnish as corpodelia, and half of this presentation will now go to that direction, and revising this a bit, that we are going, and it's late afternoon, Friday, so we are going to go quite wild in terms of scenarios, but yep, and I'm very happy to engage in the discussions. As a disclaimer, this is not a funded study and very speculative one. So when we look the psychedelics and entrepreneurial ideation, it's that I'm going to go through these few next slides rather quickly. You've been in this field for a while, or at least these 2 days, and so it's basically that this is, in a way, this is nothing new, that it was already how 60s, how the engineers got more creative ideas, and through that it has been going like where we are now, at least in my perception, is that yeah, we are in the current studies are still about therapeutic applications, but also there are the streams that look the creativity within this field, and neuroplasticity seems to be obviously a lot of in the topic, and well-being and recently we heard the talk on moral. Well then, looking then on entrepreneurship, is that it has very classic foundations in like ID and what shapes and identifies. Oh, yeah. So, entrepreneurship literature itself has identified cognitive flexibility as a key driver for entrepreneurial creativity, and which is mediated by alertness. And there, it's the alertness is ability to notice the business opportunities. So through that, and that's linked for success, like that's kind of like what is seen as successful venture ideation. And also emerging research integrates psychology in terms of the imagination and motivation, and also like how opportunities are recognized by being more alert. So like this is where the field, and it's only focusing on business. Like in the psychedelic studies, then a bit less. Obviously, business is not mentioned, and I'm coming to that as we go forward. The known effects of psychedelics vis-a-vis entrepreneurial ideation. Well, again, I assume this all has been covered quite a bit in terms of neuroplasticity, ego dissolution, and this is something that I find personally, again, coming from the ethnographic background, this is something that I think is fascinating in terms of like how a venture might be like, I give you a very brutal example. A startup entrepreneur being a speaker in Slush has made millions, being classified as psychopath almost, like in the top of the pyramid, in the startup pyramid. And then experiences ego dissolution, and with all respect, I do respect that whole ecosystem, but simply like giving a really, really contradictory example. There then, an ego dissolution like can and has been influencing like a complete reboot of like, and the businesses seem to be moving towards more sustainable, more not caring is perhaps not the right word, but definitely the moral has switched there. And we do not, at the moment, we do not know yet much about it. Also, it's a bit challenging topic to study for reasons we obviously know on the legislation. And then this results in the perspective shift. And this is also recognized, and recent literature talks about tools and all that. And then bringing in entrepreneurship. This all relates, neuroplasticity, ego dissolution, perspective shift, to entrepreneurial cognitions. Like it's what the literature in entrepreneurship talks, but it talks it with different words, and it talks it without substances. But it has the same themes within there. Then, as a last connecting factor, bringing in microdosing and entrepreneuring, is that the studies known the hype and adoption is that, and that we can say it's mainstream in Silicon Valley among the entrepreneurs. And of course, there is a lot of critique to it, like what is it used for? It's used for productivity. And that's it, and seems to be emerging literature stream itself, the critical psychedelic studies, and also critical towards the commercial phenomenon that is surrounding it. And there will be a table on this. The intent is on unchanged cognitive emotional processes. And then selected findings for this, for the entrepreneurship, is that it increases creativity. Initial open-ending is that it has the increase of positive mood. When we think about the tech sector, then tech sector might need that. And of course the critique, like, I really like the piece Acid Liberalism, which is that is this all enforcing the neoliberal paradigm, and again going to be stolen by Silicon Valley. And happy to hear your opinions on this. And And the literature admits, yes, a lack of long-term impacts. Well, then bringing this again to the discussion of entrepreneurship, is productivity mood and entrepreneurial setting. There is very fascinating opening in terms of neuro-entrepreneurship. And it's almost there, but it's also again like talking the same, but not talking the same. And with the same terms, and also what is the potential of neuroscience transforming business in meta-analysis. It also gives a bit of ideas to this direction. So introducing microdosing in entrepreneurship as a form of P&E and as an example of corporadelia phenomenon. And now it's going to do the leap of faith, let's say, is that entrepreneurship field has, I'm simply using microdosing and these studies as an example that it's more or less that there are the same topics are covered, and which is that it's the corporadelia. That is the commercial application of psychedelics, where individuals and organizations seeing to monetize and privatize psychedelics using pharmaceutical industry strategies, such as the generation of strong IPs and the use of venture capital funding. And for now, is that the academic literature within this field is for a reason, extremely critical about it. But of course, like there are the motivations and positive drivers why this is done. And it's not only that there is some evil capitalists running it. No, there are also, of course, people who believe it's good and that it accelerates innovation, gives access to more funding to do the research, and gives the legitimacy. And then, like it's the products, corporadelics, are patentable ones. And bear in mind now, this is fully based to the context of the US. And there also that the studies is there will be a soon slide on the critique itself. There is a emerging field of studies on this, and which tells the phenomenon is very real. Why we can say that is because this is an example, just an example of like how it is that there are multiple, of course, like the startups, tens of them, if not hundreds, and then there are always the scale-ups. Then there are the stock market ones, and also the clinics and the funders. And there is a very interesting piece, it just came out, about the hype, how it all collapsed, especially with the Compass and of course with the US legislation, and now it's getting up again, and it follows the certain industry logics. So, but I just wanted to bring this forward, that how the phenomenon is and what was the glimpses of it in Iceland, and of course also in Europe. Well, there is plenty of critique to it, not a question about it, and there should be, is that labeled as the gold rush, and also is the literature on especially corporadelics being politicized, and that is especially politicized to the far right. And I don't say like what is right or wrong on the politics, but also it has been politicized by the radical left. So like with these, they come much easily as political tools. And also fair critique is that there are attempts to monopolize certain methods and ways, and also that is this all leading to efficiency? Is this all leading to I'm not saying it's a capitalist plot, no, but like is who wants to do and what? Then also a big discussion and also here is that it challenges the traditional knowledges, and also that the corporate actions are less, the corporate psychedelics are less culturally appreciated. And also this third offset and setting, the focus turns on substance into new biotechnical tool aimed at maximizing productivity. I think it's very important discussion to have. It's fascinating discussion to have, but it's not yet that the discussion would be relevant, let's say, in here with the empirical, because we don't have empirical evidence on that, but we can always play a bit. And for the next 5 minutes, it's going to be introduction of a very speculative, how would it look in Finland? How does the environment look in Finland for the companies that are doing business within the space? That it has more of a public-private partnerships, is that it's because the institutions in the Nordics and in Finland in particular are very strong. State-regulated distribution following the alcohol monopoly. Integration with welfare state logics, and which leads to the ethics and ecology as selling points. And then expert of models, not products. What we can say for sure is that when it gets going and happens, it's not question of if, but it's question of when. It will be more state-regulated, equity focused, and it's not going to be like Silicon Valley startups, like what was shown in the slide earlier. That we can say because it wouldn't fit so many of the legal frameworks we have here for the entrepreneurship. For the Nordics, it's more or less the same, but also like keeping in mind that markets are very small, so it's not going to happen in the scale that it's going on in let's say, with the hype in Silicon Valley. This is an example from the paper in revision. It's very, again, like it simply have been listing of regulatory barriers, academic hurdles, and also commercialization risks. And key challenges and research directions are like it's on. Obviously, this comes with a lot of discussion topics, and that there is massive lack of studies, which again, it's be it question of funding, be it question of the business schools. Studying this topic as a business school scholar might not be very appealing for many because the stigma is still there. So it at least in Nordics it might be for a while, but hopefully changing. Then the ethical and policy is that the policy debate in Finland is outdated in terms of. Is that no, somebody's phone. Is outdated in the terms of if we talk about, for example, ibogaine and then what classification it has and what are the recent results saying about it, and then we talk about the discussion surrounding peukku and like it's that ibogaine is in the same category than fentanyl, not on the same category, but it's still as a drug. So that it's a long way to go that somebody would, for example, say publicly like, hey, how about ibogaine to peukku crisis?
Say what is peukku, because Finnish people don't know what it is.
But how do you try? Alpha PVP, sorry. yeah. It's been so much in the media that it's simply like alpha PVP. Yeah, apologies. And thanks. And then throwing out a few discussion ideas for public and non-public discussion, and before running out of time, summarizing. So that the attention was to bring a bit of unusual framing from entrepreneurship discipline to this particular emergent field, and then bringing also the tensions of it, of that it's not always a fairy tale when the entrepreneurs, but of course entrepreneurs who are here you are the moral hope of entrepreneuring in this country at the moment and within this field. And then the Nordic distinctness that whatever goes in the US, and this is often forgotten in the literature, whatever is going on in the US does not apply to the environments that are here. Like certain clinical trials for sure, but when it comes to entrepreneuring, for example, the macro context is so different. And yes, we can try to understand certain institutional logics, but still it's ultimately it's very different. And I thank you for your attention to a very speculative futures and look forward hearing what are your thoughts on entrepreneuring within this field in the Nordics and Finland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jukka-Pekka. Yes, I'll open up the discussion for comments and questions on psychedelics and entrepreneurial ideation. I don't see any immediate question. I will jump in because I was fascinated by the idea of private-public corporadelia in Finland. What could that look like if you really want to speculate? What could be a sort of a specific example of what you think could happen?
Yes, I think the prime example could be like what we have going on in the healthcare. That there we have the couple of big businesses, Terveystalo, and then we have the public one. And within there, like the first, let's say, ibogaine treatments and like that, with these big private medical companies, and then the service providers, as it's now, they are entrepreneurs. They are micro entrepreneurs who are providing the service. So in that way, let's say a ketamine clinic operates under Terveystalo through that. And then that's connected to the public sector that feeds in, let's say, when the public sector runs out of the options, then they feed in to the private one as it's already some done. Yeah. I guess in there it could be the first ones. Yeah, and I'm very hopeful on that it would be on the ethics, like to a certain level that it would be kind of like ethical, like these are the ethical protocols, these are how to work with plant medicine, and it comes from somehow that the state has a role on it. I'm a bit naive, but I like to be naive.
Very good. Question over here.
Hello, thanks Jukka for the fantastic presentation. And building on top of earlier question, how you see steward ownership, big corporations or public benefit corporations as governance models also for the Finnish private players in psychedelic scene?
Steward ownership, yes. I'm a steward, and the thing is, like, I don't know this very good question. Yes, how to get started? Is that how much the question comes? How transparent can you be at the moment? Like with the business models, be it with the funders, be it with what is the business logic? Like it's of course like certain models require full transparency. It would be good to apply, but again, then there are the models that have been proved out to be successful in the Silicon Valley. That yes, that certain things are shielded by IPs. There is a CEO. There is a traditional structure. So, but then giving you a very complicated answer. Then coming into the Nordic environment, where the steward leadership and stewardness is that, and also what our research does on the open strategy is that we are studying the leading tech companies in Finland, how they do their open strategizing. Like it's I guess it could work for early stage, no. Early stage, no. Would be my wild guess.
Thanks. You mentioned the state alcohol monopoly, so you can't resist asking if psychedelics were legalized or became commercial products in Finland, would they be sold? There's the Finnish alcohol monopoly Aalto, so could we see a Psycho selling psychedelics?
That's the question I'm going to open up in yhteiskuntapolitiikka. Yeah. Yeah. I'm as curious as you are, and the editors are from THL, so it's fascinating. Let's hope that section gets accepted. Like it's a valid question. Then okay, like what shall we do? Yeah. So for the next conference, I'm happy to deliver you an answer.
Thank you. Questions, Henry?
Yeah, can you elaborate on the particularities about the Nordic countries that make you think that they have a different kind of basis upon which to build upon? And I'm not asking this as if we would never have thought about what makes Nordic countries like special. Of course, people have ideas, but I'm thinking it would be interesting to hear you elaborate more on that.
There are a couple of things. Is that how much time I have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Okay. Then let's not get started with the half an hour. So on, like it's having the long public healthcare records is that's one thing, and then having the state has a strong role. But it comes to entrepreneuring. But it comes that it's state coordinated capitalism, and also that there are the state innovation centers. The countries have them, and that also that people see the perception then for citizens towards the state is that, okay, as we know, Finnish happiness is part of that people like to pay taxes. That's what at least a colleague says when interviewed. And there it's then that the state has this kind of partner role. And that's in the Nordics. In the Nordics in terms of so-called welfare state, where the critique then goes that the state knows better than you. And that's why things are so slow also. But this, when compared to the most radical other example, the Silicon Valley, the most liberal environment for entrepreneuring within this field for sure, there it's the role of the state is obviously wished to be as minimal as possible. Like state is simply the troublemaker. And so with these, and also that the markets are small, easy to experiment, easy then to, once the legislation is there. That's in a nutshell, hopefully. Hopefully it answered a bit like what at least I see within Europe and compared to the US. And lastly, Iceland being the bridge between Northern Europe and US. Like Iceland seems to have insanely a lot of activity considered to its size. Consider that it's fairly small island and it's booming in the activities. So also that there is this bridge coming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jukka-Pekka Heikkilä, once again.
Thank you.